Hello, Storytime friends. Thank you so much for joining us for another bedtime story time this evening. I'm here with my best stuffed friend, Fluffy. She's wearing her pajamas. I'm wearing my pajamas. I hope that you're wearing your pajamas too, and maybe snuggled up with a stuffed friend of your own. Now, if you haven't met Fluffy yet, you might not have met me either. My name is Miss Ann, and I'm the Early Literacy Specialist for Lincolnwood Public Library. So that just means that I get to do all of these story times for all of our littlest kiddos and their families. And now that we're virtual, even our older kiddos can join. Even our grown-ups without their kiddos can join. Everybody needs a little bit of storytime magic, in my opinion at least. In my opinion, storytime magic is a necessity of life. Now, when we start a story time, when we start one of our story times, we always use the same hello song, right? When we were doing story time in the building and all of our virtual story times, we use our Hello Friend song. I'm going to put Fluffy to the side for this one because our Hello Friend song has some great American Sign Language words in it, so I'll need both of my hands to show you. Now, there are so many great reasons to learn American Sign Language, even just a few words with you and your family. If your kiddo is pre-verbal, right? If they're not speaking yet, they are understanding what you're saying, right? That understanding comes way before they're able to develop those throat and neck muscles that allow them to talk, right? That allow them to make words with their mouths. They're understanding what you're saying, and it can be frustrating for them, right? To not be able to communicate back. Should we learn the sign for communicate in American Sign Language? Yeah. We take our two C hands, right? Like the letter C for communicate, and we move them back and forth in front of our chin, right? Communicate. What I love about this sign is that it shows just what a good conversation does, right? Which is that back and forth, back and forth, right? We call that in early childhood, we call that a serve and return. So you might be starting the conversation as the grown-up, and your kiddo is returning something to you, right? They're either speaking back to you, right, if they're able to speak already, or they might be returning a form of communication to you that's just their bodies, their eyes, right, where they're looking. That's a type of communication. They're showing you what they're interested in by looking at it, maybe pointing, right? That's a form of communication. So the reason that we include ASL, American Sign Language, in our story times is to give another communication tool, right? So we can use it to communicate with each other. We can use it to communicate with people who are deaf or hard of hearing who speak American Sign Language. We can use it to communicate with people who are speaking with their words. It's just another communication tool, right? We can use our voices. We can use our signs. We can use so many different ways to communicate with one another. There's nothing better than adding another communication tool to our roster, right? That makes it less frustrating when we're trying to get our point across. Just to have another tool there makes it a little bit less frustrating and a little easier to get across what we want to say. So in our Hello Friends song, we have a few different sign language words. We have hello, which is just taking our hand flat, doing a little salute from our forehead, right? We tuck our thumb in, do a little salute. Hello. We have friends. Now this one's a little bit harder for our tiniest storytime friends because we have to develop some muscles in our hands to be able to do this one. So don't worry if they don't get it right correctly right away, right? Because it's just like when we're learning to speak, right? We might say something like paschetti when really we mean spaghetti, right? But we don't say, oh my gosh, you got it wrong. We got to stop trying this. No, we keep trying and we get better and better, right? So we're going to try. We're going to do friends, yeah, and our grown-ups can do it the correct way, and then they can help out our kiddos practice and practice and practice. We take our two pointer fingers, kind of like they're little people, right? Like they're little people, and just like real friends, they hug. And when they hug, they switch sides. Friends. Friends. If you're ready with those two, you can also add two more. You can add time, which is just taking your one wrist flat, like you're wearing a watch here, and you point to it, like look what time it is. And you can add say, which is just taking your hand flat and tapping it onto your chin. Now, if you don't want to touch your face, I know we're doing such a good job of training ourselves to not touch our faces. You can just put it right in front. That's what I do a lot of the time. That's what I like to do. All right, I think we're ready. Hello, friends. Hello, friends. Hello. Oh my gosh, great job, Storytime friends. I know that you were out there singing along and getting those American Sign Language words so well. I can just feel it through the phone. Now, the next thing that we always do at Bedtime Storytime is we do what's called a teach and repeat rhyme. And that's pretty much exactly like how it sounds, right? We learn a rhyme, and then we repeat it for a few months. And by the end, when we switch to a new rhyme, you guys are experts. You don't even need me anymore. You've memorized the rhyme, you've memorized the tune, and you can do it right on your own, right? You can pull it out at any time of the day without needing me or needing our rhyme sheets. So the rhyme that we've been doing for our teach and repeat for a while now is called This Little Child. So this one has a few different action words with it. It has a few different actions to go with the words, I should say. So it has a pointing to ourselves, right? Because we're going to bed, this child, right? Point to ourselves. Then we're going to lay our head down on a pretend pillow. So we have to make our pillow out of our hands, right? Take one flat hand and we put our head down on it like it's a nice soft pillow. And then what else do we need to go to sleep? Not just a pillow, but a blanket, right? So we pretend like we're pulling a blanket up over ourselves and squeezing ourselves tight, right? Tight with that blanket, nice and warm and cozy. And then my favorite part of all, we end by pretending to fall asleep. Now, I don't know about you and your grown-ups, but I will admit here on Storytime, I snore when I sleep. So when I pretend to sleep, I love to do a little pretend snore. Oh my gosh, don't really fall asleep though. That's always the danger with this rhyme, is that we're about to really fall asleep because we've done such a good job with our actions. All right, I think we're ready. This little child is going to bed. Down on the pillow they lay their head. They wrap themselves in a blanket tight. And this is the way they sleep all night. Oh my gosh, I really did almost fall asleep that time. That was close. That was a close one. All right, so now that we've said hello to one another, we've done our teach and repeat rhyme, I think we're ready for our story for this evening. Our story, right? Now, at bedtime story time and at lunch break story time, at all of our story times, we love the flannel board. And this is a flannel story that we're going to share together. Now, this story, we've talked about this term before. This story is a folk tale, right? So this story is a story that's been passed down over time, and sometimes it was told just with no props at all, right? No flannel board, no puppets, no nothing, just with our voices. And sometimes we've seen it done in books, some picture books, some movies. There are so many different ways that a story like this, a folk tale, has been told and retold. All different kinds of variations, all different little changes that happen from the person that's telling it, right? So we're going to tell Miss Ann's special version tonight with the flannel board. But you can tell your own version, and I'm going to go ahead and put in the description for the video some versions, some picture book versions in our catalog, so you can go ahead and place those on hold for curbside pickup, and then you could read the picture book versions together. You could do some comparing and contrasting, which ones you like the best, which ones are different and how they're different, which, by the way, is also a really great early math skill, that comparing and contrasting. But we're going to tell our version with our friend the flannel board. With our friend the flannel board, I'm going to move you guys back just a little bit. So straighten you out a little bit. I'm going to move you guys back just a little bit so that I can have the full flannel board in the video. There we go. Now this story is about a little boy named Jack. Little boy named Jack. But when you tell this story, I'll give you a hint. You could change this person to your own name if you wanted to. You could change it to another name that you want to use. You don't have to use Jack. Now, Jack had a mommy, and Jack and his mommy were very poor. They didn't have any money, right? And they were really, really hungry. They needed to buy some food. They did have something that was worth some money, right? Something that they could get some money for if they sold it. And that was, can we see what animal that is? Their cow. Their cow. Now, Jack really loved this cow. What should we name the cow? Do you have a good idea? Yeah, when you tell this story, you can name the cow whatever you like. I'm going to name the cow Marshmallow. Marshmallows are white, just like cows, right? So Marshmallow and Jack were very good friends. And Jack really didn't want to sell Marshmallow, but they were so hungry. And so his mommy told him to take Marshmallow down to the market and to see if he could get a good price for her, if he could sell her and get some money for them. Now Jack and Marshmallow walked down to the market, and on the way, they met someone who seemed very interested in Marshmallow. That someone exclaimed, "Oh my gosh, what a beautiful cow. I bet that she makes the most delicious milk, and I love milk so much. I like to put it on my cereal every morning. I like to have it with cookies. I have to buy this cow. I have to buy Marshmallow." And Jack said, okay, I am going to the market to sell Marshmallow, so this is a good idea. I'm willing to sell her to you. How much are you willing to give me for her? Now this person was a little bit of a trickster, right? This person liked to play some tricks sometimes. And this person held out a hand with 3 teeny tiny little beans in it, right? Have you ever seen uncooked beans? Have you ever seen those little teeny tiny little beans? That's just what this person was holding. This person was holding out 3 tiny little beans. And Jack said, 3 beans? Marshmallow is worth way more than that. The person said, no. These are magic beans. These beans will make you so wealthy. It will make you have so much money, right? You'll never be hungry again a day in your life because these beans are magic. And Jack, oh my gosh, now Jack was just a little boy, so Jack didn't exactly know what was true, what might not be true. He was pretty trusting, so he figured this person looked pretty honest. This person looked like they were telling the truth. And if these beans were really magical, and if they would really make it so that Jack and his mommy would never have to go hungry ever again, oh my gosh, it's totally worth it. So he said, yes, you can have Marshmallow and I will take the beans. So away Marshmallow went with the bean seller, and home Jack went with his 3 little magical, maybe, beans. Now when Jack got home and showed his mommy what he had gotten, the price that he had gotten for Marshmallow, Mommy was not super happy. Mommy did not believe that those beans were magic at all. She thought this person, the bean seller, was a liar, right? He had lied and told Jack that the beans were magical when they really weren't. She was so upset that she threw the beans out the window, and she sent Jack to bed with no supper. I know that wasn't very nice, but she also was very hungry. Sometimes when we're hungry, we don't do very nice things, right? Now Jack was so sad all night. He could barely sleep, but he finally got a couple of hours of sleep. And when he woke up in the morning, he looked out his window and he saw, oh my gosh, you guys, this is pretty awesome. He saw the biggest beanstalk he had ever seen. Look, it reaches all the way up to the sky, all the way up into the clouds. Oh my gosh, this beanstalk, the beans had been magical because look what they had made. Now Jack was getting pretty curious about that beanstalk, and so he decided that he was going to climb up all the way into the clouds. Now, even Jack was not expecting what he saw when he got up there in the clouds at the very top of the beanstalk. I bet that you guys might know. You guys might know what he saw. He saw the biggest castle he had ever seen in his whole life. Oh my gosh, look at that castle, and look at Jack next to it. Look how tiny he is next to that giant castle. Now, speaking of giant, that is a very good word, because Jack was starting to look around inside the castle when he heard the biggest stomping. Can you guys stomp really loud on the ground? Boom, 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 boom. And he heard the voice, the deep, loud voice of, I bet you guys know, the scary mean giant. Oh my gosh, that giant looks so scary and so angry. And the giant sniffed the air inside of his castle and yelled out in his deep, dark, gruff sounding voice, his angry sounding voice, "Fee, fi, fo, fum. I smell something yum, yum, yum." Because I know this part's a little scary, but don't worry, it turns out just fine. Because this giant liked to eat little boys. Yeah, liked to eat little boys and girls. And the giant had been doing that in the village where Jack lived, had been stealing boys and girls to eat, had been stealing gold and food. Oh, this giant was not a nice giant. This giant was a very mean giant. Now, Jack was so scared that he hid in the castle. And the giant kept sniffing, but he couldn't see anybody. He couldn't see any kiddos to eat. He couldn't see any kiddos, so he figured, all right, I must have just been smelling the kiddos I ate last week, right? I must have just been smelling them. So he started to get relaxed. He sat in his castle and ate some food. And before bed, he took out his bags of gold coins. His bags of gold coins. And he started counting them. Now, he had a lot of gold coins, a lot of them. So it took him a long time to count. And Jack was hiding so scared this whole time. But finally, the giant started to fall asleep. And you guys do our pretend snore again. It's perfect for this story, right? And while our giant was sleeping, our little friend Jack crept over and stole one of the bags of money. The bag of money is almost as big as he is. And climbed back down the beanstalk. Now, Jack brought all of those gold coins, that bag full of gold coins, to his mommy. And for a while, they lived really well, right? They used their coins to buy food, to buy seeds, to make more crops on their farm, all the things that they needed, right? But pretty soon, after a couple of bad harvests, I know that's a big word, right? That just means that when we farm, right, when we grow plants, sometimes they don't come out so great, right? Sometimes there's rain or snow or bad wind or buggies that eat them up. And sometimes they don't all come out like we planned. And when we have a bad harvest, that can be bad for our money, right? We don't get as much money when we try to sell our crops. So soon, Jack and his mommy were really hungry and really poor again. Jack had a pretty good idea, though. He climbed back up our beanstalk, all the way into the clouds and back to the giant's castle. Now, just as Jack was looking around inside the castle to try to find some more gold, here's our little Jack. There's our little Jack next to the castle. He heard, are you guys ready to do your stomping again? Stomp, 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 stomp. And he saw the giant. Oh my gosh, we've got to get the giant out here. Big scary giant. Now, the giant sniffed the air again and said in his big, deep, angry voice, do we remember? Fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell something. Yum, yum, yum. And Jack was really scared and Jack hid. Jack was a very good hider. So the giant kept sniffing, but he didn't see any kiddos. He figured, oh, that was probably the kiddo that I ate yesterday. That was probably that kiddo. That's what I'm smelling. So he settled down and he had his dinner And instead of his bags of gold this time, he took out from a cage a teeny tiny little goose. A goose, a bird, right? Now he said to this bird, who did not look very happy to be there, did not look very well fed or well taken care of, looked kind of sick and hungry. He said to this goose in a very mean giant voice, "Lay your eggs." And what came when our little goose laid the eggs was golden eggs, eggs made out of solid gold. We could definitely sell those for quite a lot of money, right? That's what Jack was thinking too. So after the giant fell asleep, are you ready? Jack tiptoed over, grabbed our goose, and ran down the beanstalk again. Now our goose was still pretty sickly, right? And Jack didn't want to be mean to our goose and force it to lay eggs. So our goose just spent some time getting better, right? Jack fed it some nice food, gave it a nice comfy bed so that it would feel better. In the meantime, though, they didn't have any more gold, and we didn't have any golden eggs coming out of our goose quite yet. So Jack made a decision. What do you think that it was? Did you guess? Jack made a decision to climb back up our beanstalk, right? All the way into the clouds, up to our giant's castle. Our castle. Now this time, Jack was determined. He was going to make sure that he was able to find some more gold coins so that he and his mommy and his new goose friend were able to live and eat and be safe and healthy. So Jack was looking all around the castle to find some more gold coins when he heard, you guys remember, stomp, 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 stomp. It was the angry giant. And the angry giant sniffed the air and said, do you remember? Fee, fi, fo, fum. I smell something. Yum, yum, yum. And Jack was a good hider, right? So Jack hid again. And the giant smelled kid. Yeah, he smelled that tasty kiddo smell. But he didn't see any kiddos that he could eat up. So he figured, that must be the kiddo that I ate 2 days ago. That must have been that kiddo. That kiddo was very tasty. So once he started relaxing, eating his dinner, he didn't pull out his goose. He was not quite sure where that goose had gotten to. He did not pull out his bags of gold. He pulled out a golden harp. Now a harp, if you haven't seen one of these before, is a special musical instrument, right? It plays beautiful music. Now normally you have to pluck the strings, right, on the harp to be able to play it. But this was a magical harp. This harp played music whenever the giant commanded it to, whenever the giant told it to, right? Now the giant did not ask in a nice, polite way. The giant, just like how he treated the goose, said, "Play your music, harp." And the harp did not look very happy to be having to play music for such a mean audience. But the harp started to play, and our giant started to fall asleep to the music. You ready? And while the giant was sleeping, Jack crept over and grabbed this giant magical harp. Oh my gosh, it's so heavy. And climbed back down the beanstalk. But just as he was almost all the way down, the harp got so excited that he wasn't going to have to play music for the giant anymore, who was so mean and so loud that the harp cried out, "Yay!" as they were running down the beanstalk. Now, unfortunately, that woke our giant up. Our giant saw Jack running down the beanstalk with his magical harp and figured out that this must be what had happened to his bag of gold and to his magical goose who laid the golden eggs. And he was very mad. He was very mad, and he started climbing down that beanstalk, following Jack, chasing Jack down. Oh my gosh. By the time Jack had gotten to the base of the beanstalk, he was scared, but he was also very smart. He was very smart, and he called to his mommy. Oh no, our beanstalk. Don't worry, I'll get it back. He called to his mommy, Mommy, bring me the axe that we used to cut wood. Bring me the axe that we used to cut wood. Now, Jack was very good at cutting wood because that was one of the chores that he did for Mommy every day. So he got his little axe and he chop, 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 chop at that beanstalk. And just before our giant was almost to the bottom, the beanstalk fell over. The giant fell down to earth and was never seen again. Never again. Now Jack and his mommy and his goose friend and his harp friend all were able to live together. Our goose got better. Our goose recovered from being sick and not being fed well enough by that mean giant and started laying those golden eggs for Jack and his mama, and they could use them to buy new seeds for their farm for a nice good crop next year. They could use it to buy yummy food to fill their bellies up, and they could use it to give all of them a wonderful happily ever after. That's how our best stories end, isn't that right? Oh my gosh, you guys were such good listeners. You guys were such good listeners with our story. All right, Storytime friends, I can't believe it, but it's already time to say goodbye, to say see you later to each other. Storytime is never long enough, but that's why we have all of the recordings, right? So this Storytime and all of our lunch break Storytimes, all of our past bedtime Storytimes are all right here in our videos playlist, so you can watch any of them at any time that you like, day or night. And you can also, if you're missing some Storytime magic, you can also call into our dial-a-story line, which is 847-999-7600. And in our dial-a-story line, you're going to get a menu read by me, so you'll recognize the voice, of all of the different options. So there's a bunch of picture book options. There's some chapter books that we add a new chapter every week and have all the previous chapters in case you've missed them. We also have both of our One Book One community selections. So our one for children and families, which is Outside Inside by Leywin Pham, and our one for grown-ups, which is The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. So we have both of those up there for you to listen to as well. Anytime, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can use a phone, a landline phone, or a cell phone. No internet is needed for the dial-a-story. So you've got two different things that can fill your story time needs all throughout the week. All right, are you ready for our goodbye song? Now our goodbye song is the exact same as our hello song, except for we sing goodbye in sign language, which is just opening our hand and closing it, right? Goodbye instead of hello. And all the rest of the signs are the same. So Fluffy, I'm going to put you right to the side so I have both my hands. And we're ready to sing. Goodbye, friends. Goodbye, friends. Goodbye, friends. It's time to say goodbye. Fluffy, come on back to give our Storytime friends a hug and a kiss. I miss you so very much, and I'm looking forward to when we can safely be together again. In the meantime, I'm so happy to have you joining us virtually and to be able to connect with you in this way. Mwah!